Hi guys, I hope you're all doing really well. Welcome back to What the Horror, the channel where we talk about horror movies old and new. So back in July, I began a series of top 10 lists that included horror movies that were geared around summer viewing. So far, we've had a best of summer horror list and the best of camping list. Today, I'm doing the last entry in that series, for now at least, as I am really scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to summer. I mean, it's now September and the leaves are turning orange. However, I'm not going to let that stop me sharing 10 of the best water-based creature features that take us all the way from the ocean to the Amazon River. I love aquatic horror and I love creature features, so obviously I love water-based creature features, and this list includes some of my absolute favourites. I'm going to leave a link here to the summer horror playlist that includes those specific summer top 10 lists, but I do also have just a general top 10 playlist which I will link at the end so that you can go and check those out if you want to. So first on the list we have Deep Blue Sea, directed by Renny Harlin and released in 1999. A group of researchers tried to find a cure for Alzheimer's disease by genetically modifying shark brains. However, trouble ensues when the genetically modified sharks hunt down their creators. Deep Blue Sea is, in my opinion, one of the strongest post-Jaws shark movies released. It has an amazing cast, including Thomas Jane, Saffron Burrows, Stellan Skarsgård, Samuel L. Jackson, and LL Cool J. And unlike some of its fellow shark movies, Deep Blue Sea is not afraid of gore. It is full of gore, horror, and some genuinely suspenseful scenes. There's also quite a level of violence to it, which may seem like a daft thing to say about a movie where people are getting eaten alive, but what I mean by that is that each of the kill scenes has a high level of aggressive violence to it. Deep Blue Sea does a really good job in spending just enough time setting up its story and characters before it gets into the kills, but once it does get into the kills, it never really lets up until the credits roll. And talking of the credits, Deep Blue Sea has a credit song sung by LL Cool J that was specifically written for this movie, and it's called Deepest Bluest. It's awesome. If you haven't heard it, I would highly recommend going to listen to that if you're not going to watch the film. The sharks that you see in Deep Blue Sea are a mixture of CGI, animatronic, and real sharks. Renny Harlin said that while the shark in Jaws remains hidden for most of its runtime, he wanted their sharks in Deep Blue Sea to be seen a lot. He also wanted to mix in real shark footage to help with the transitions to the CGI sharks. They actually took the lead actor Thomas Jane out to the Bahamas to shoot with real sharks. He had a day that he got to spend in a cage, and then he was just put in the open water that they put chum in to attract the sharks in. Apparently it was a pretty scary experience for him, which, yeah, I can imagine. Deep Blue Sea also had its original ending changed shortly before it was due to be theatrically released, and this was because of the reaction that the test audience had to it. I won't say what the original one was or what it was changed to in case you haven't seen it yet and it spoils it for you, but I would say after you've watched the film, or if you have already seen it, it's an interesting read to find out what they originally planned for the ending of the film. Next up we have The Meg, released in 2018. When the members of an underwater research facility are under threat owing to a 75-foot prehistoric shark, Jonas Taylor, a deep-sea diver, is hired to save them. Okay, so The Meg isn't exactly a full-on horror movie. In fact, online it's described as a science fiction action film. However, it is a water-based creature feature, so on the list it goes because I actually really love The Meg. I think this one is a good entry for people who don't like too much gore or horror in their movies, or if you're introducing a younger audience to creature features. The Meg stars action movie staple Jason Statham, Lee Bingbing, Ruby Rose, and Rainn Wilson of The Office fame. It was an American and Chinese co-production and went on to be a pretty big box office success and made $530 million worldwide. What I enjoy about The Meg is how this film actually has likeable and interesting characters who I'm happy to spend the 1 hour and 53 minute runtime watching. And despite this movie being just short of 2 hours long, it doesn't actually feel that long. At no point does it drag, as the pacing in this film is really good. Sure, there are a few scenes here and there that are a little bit cliche, and the script ends up just trying to come up with as many ways possible to get Jason Statham's top off and get him back in the water. But with a CGI shark that looked pretty realistic and so in turn absolutely terrifying, a good story and enjoyable characters, this is a really good time. Next up we have Piranha, directed by Joe Dante and released in 1978. When thousands of military hybrid piranhas are accidentally released into a river used by a children's holiday camp, the race is on to get downstream before the flesh-eating fish do. Piranha was the first B-movie creature feature to come out after the success of Jaws, and apparently Steven Spielberg himself has called it the best of the Jaws rip-offs. This movie is full of hammy acting, cheesy lines, and some less than spectacular special effects at times, but it is still a cult classic that is worth a watch. It's also a great summer watch because, like a lot of creature features, it's mostly set in the daylight and around a lake during summer days. If the 70s setting and hammy B-movie style isn't personally for you, but you're still in the mood for some flesh-eating fish, then there is always the 2010 remake. This one shifts its setting from summer to spring break and probably has more bare breasts in it than it does fish. The remake is a movie that kind of makes you feel like you need a shower afterwards. It's full of gore and nudity and is kind of nasty, but in a really oddly fun way. Plus it has a little cameo from Richard Dreyfuss, which is fun. Next up we have Leviathan, which was released in 1989. A crew descends to the ocean's depths for a mining project. When the undersea explorers find a sunken ship and investigate, they inadvertently bring a malevolent life form on board their vessel. The creature kills some crew members and causes them to mutate, resulting in a battle for survival against an unknown force far below the surface of the ocean. Okay, so this one may not be for everyone or liked by everyone. It currently has an audience rating of 26% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I would say check this one out for yourself and give it a chance. I think the fact it was also released to negative reviews could be in part down to the fact that Leviathan is clearly inspired by movies such as Alien and The Thing, and is also very similar to the movie The Abyss, which came out the same year. It's definitely got that same worker crew trapped in a claustrophobic setting while being stalked by something that those movies have. But while it is a little copy-paste repeat without being as good as those movies, I think Leviathan is actually pretty decent. Its screenplay was written by David Webb, who also wrote Blade Runner and Die Hard, and the creature effects were done by Stan Winston, who also did the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park and the crocodile in Lake Placid. I think what makes creature features like this one interesting for the audience is that we don't know how this creature is made, or how it kills, or how it can be killed, and so that can add a level of tension to the movie. Next up we have Creature from the Black Lagoon, that was released in 1954. After discovering the fossil of a webbed hand, a group of scientists travel down the Amazon River to determine if the find is an anomaly or evidence of an undiscovered creature. But the dangers of the land are nothing compared to the danger lurking in the waters of the Black Lagoon. Creature from the Black Lagoon is one of the original Universal monsters and one of my personal favourites of the Universal monsters. I think even if you've never seen the movie, the image of the gill man is probably familiar to you. What's interesting about Creature from the Black Lagoon is that it was released at a time when the popularity of monster movies was waning and creatures from outer space were becoming much more popular because of the space race, and yet it was still a success. I think a big part of its success could be that while the Gill Man is the villain of the movie, like Frankenstein's monster, he is a sympathetic villain and audiences really took to him. It's also a pretty impressive image, the full bodysuit that was used to create the creature. The suit was designed by a Disney illustrator called Millicent Patrick, although unfortunately sole credit for the design was unfairly given to Bud Westmore for decades after the film was released. It was the first time a full body suit had been used for the Universal Monster movies, having previously just relied on facial prosthetics. Creature from the Black Lagoon is also possibly the first example of nature striking back at mankind in a movie. This trope would of course go on to be the blueprint of a lot of future creature features. Next up we have Anaconda, which was released in 1997. A snake hunter offers his assistance to a documentary crew attempting to film an indigenous tribe in the Amazon. But as the journey progresses, his presence forces them to veer into dangerous waters. I read something on social media the other week that said that the 90s didn't necessarily make better movies, but they made better bad movies, and Anaconda is a perfect example of that. I'm going to make it clear that Anaconda is not on this list because it's an amazing movie. It's on this list because it's an anomaly to me. It's just bizarre in so many wonderful ways. I mean, just look at the cast that you have. You have Owen Wilson, Ice Cube, and Jennifer Lopez. And let's not forget Jon Voight, who, without him, I just don't think this movie would be as entertaining. Just everything from his hair, his facial expressions, and his accent. They all just add so much to your viewing. If you want a movie that is so bad it's good, then this is the one for you. This recommendation could honestly just be me listing random things about this movie. For example, how the snake is credited as being voiced by Frank Welker. Yep, that's right, the guy who voiced Fred and Scooby-Doo. Or how, in my personal favourite moment from the movie, Jennifer Lopez is talking to her love interest Eric Stoltz and gazes out across the Amazon River and says, "Wow, those fireflies," and the camera cuts to what are obviously strings of blinking Christmas lights hung up. Anaconda went on to have 3 sequels and a crossover with another 90s creature feature like Placid. Next we have Crawl, released in 2019. Florida residents Haley and her father get trapped in a massive hurricane and struggle to escape, but things get worse when they realise that the floodwater is the least of their fears. So this is the second film mentioned on this list that is directed by Alexandre Aja, having also directed the Piranha remake. He also did the Hills Have Eyes remake and Horns. Crawl is far less nasty than either of those movies, but it still packs a punch when it comes to the violence. There is plenty of gore, injury shots, and alligator kills. Crawl is a quick 87-minute watch and is paced really well. There is a brief setting up of the characters and the story at the beginning, but then you're just thrown into the action that then takes you through the rest of the movie. I have read some reviews that say that the story is just wafer thin, but I don't think that that matters in Crawl, where what story it does have is set up and executed really effectively. A perfect example of this is how the lead character is a skilled professional swimmer, and so she's able to hold her own when trying to evade and escape from the alligators in the water. And making her a skilled swimmer, it allows the audience to buy into her ability to do so. Aja cited one-location movies such as Alien, Cujo, and Evil Dead as inspirations for Crawl, and Jaws as its blueprint. Apparently, he wanted watching the film to feel similar to riding a roller coaster, full of suspense, and Crawl is suspenseful. The characters are placed in danger from both the hurricane and from the alligators, so you're watching them not only try to survive the alligators, but survive them while being in the middle of a natural disaster. Next up, we have The Host, directed by Bong Joon-ho and released in 2006. Careless American military personnel dump chemicals into South Korea's Han River. Several years later, a creature emerges from the tainted waters and sinks its ravenous jaws into local residents. When the creature abducts their daughter, a vendor and his family decide that they are the only ones who can save her. The Host is probably the most political movie on this list. It definitely highlights or references the bad feeling between the US and South Korea. I mean, the movie opens with a scene that is depicting a real-life event where a Korean mortician working for the US military in Seoul is told to dump hundreds of bottles of formaldehyde down the drain, which then leads into the Han River. But while it can be classed as a political metaphor, The Host is also a monster movie and a dark comedy. honestly, there are so many moments in this movie that I just found absolutely hilarious. There were a couple that I wasn't actually sure at first if I was supposed to find them funny, because they're often interwound with some other darker scenes, but no, this is definitely a dark comedy. While the CGI of the creature is a little dated now, it's still a gorgeous movie that is just shot flawlessly. Honestly, go check this one out. Next up, we have The Shallows, released in 2016. Nancy travels to a secluded beach following the death of her mother. While surfing, she gets attacked by a great white shark which leaves her stranded on a rock 200 yards from the shore. While being a shark movie, The Shallows is also an exploration of grief as we follow Nancy both try to deal and heal after the death of her mother and deal with her strained relationship with her dad. And seeing as how the movie just follows Nancy, aside from a couple of brief appearances from other humans and a really cute seagull sidekick, it's important that we like and care about her. And I think that Blake Lively does a great job in her portrayal, and the character of Nancy is written well, making her intelligent and making her capable. I also think that what The Shallows does well is it strips its story back to basics in the vein of Jaws, where it's a basic man versus shark movie. There's no mutations or scientific experiment involved. It's just a shark hunting for food and a person trying to outwit it and survive. Not that I don't like movies that add a gimmick like Deep Blue Sea, but when it's been done so many times in recent years with movies like Sharknado, it's a refreshing change to watch a film that's like The Shallows. And finally, we have Jaws, directed by Steven Spielberg and released in 1975. When a young woman is killed by a shark while swimming off the coast of Amity Island, Police Chief Martin Brody wants to close the beaches, but the mayor overrules him, fearing that the loss of tourist revenue will cripple the town. Marine biologist Matt Hooper and shark hunter Quint offer to help Brody capture the killer beast, and the trio emerge in an epic battle of man versus nature. Yes, of course this one was going to be on the list. I talk about this movie whenever I get the chance to. Not only is it a masterpiece, but it's one of my absolute favourite movies. I actually did a truly horror episode on it recently where I talk about the true event that inspired the story of the book and the movie, so I'll leave a link to that here so you can go and check that out if you want to. I did consider not including Jaws, as it's a pretty obvious and standard inclusion in lists like this, but it is one of the best, if not best, water-based creature features. It has an incredibly strong cast who all deliver amazing performances, and no matter how many times you watch it, I personally think that Jaws always remains a tense watch thanks to the hidden creature and John Williams' score. So there you have it, guys, my top 10 water-based creature features. Hopefully there were one or two on the list that piqued your interest. Let me know which of these you also like or which ones you think that you'll check out. I'm a huge fan of creature features, especially water-based ones, so if you have any ideas or recommendations, please do leave them down in the comments. They don't even have to be good movies. I'm perfectly happy watching bad creature features too. Well, that's it for summer-based top 10 lists for this year, but I may do some more next summer for you. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in the next episode. I think it will probably be a movie review or perhaps a deep dive of a movie, but don't forget to subscribe if you're not already so you don't miss it, whatever it ends up being. But in the meantime, thank you as always for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye, guys.